Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis are both retired now, both in their late 50s, both respected elder statesmen of boxing. When they see each other at events, there's mutual respect, no animosity, no bitterness. Just two men who fought once, gave everything they had, and moved on with their lives. But June 8, 2002, in Memphis, Tennessee, was different. That night wasn't just another fight. It was Mike Tyson's last real chance at the heavyweight championship. His final shot at reclaiming the glory he'd lost years before. Mike was 35 years old. Lennox was 36. Both were older fighters. But only one was still in his prime. Lennox Lewis was the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Tall, skilled, powerful, and disciplined. Mike Tyson was a legend chasing a ghost. Still dangerous, still famous, but no longer the fighter who dominated the late 1980s. That night in Memphis, in front of over 15,000 fans at the Pyramid Arena, the truth would be revealed. And when it was over, Mike Tyson's dream of being heavyweight champion again would be finished forever. Today, Mike admits it. Lennox was the better man that night, he said. He was bigger, stronger, smarter. I gave it everything I had, but it wasn't enough. It's a rare moment of honesty from a man who spent years making excuses, and it's a sign of how much he's grown. The Mike Tyson who fought Lennox Lewis in 2002 wasn't the Mike Tyson of today. He was still fighting himself, still running from reality, and Lennox Lewis exposed him one final time. By the time Mike Tyson faced Lennox Lewis in June 2002, his career had been in decline for over a decade. The Buster Douglas loss in 1990 shattered his aura of invincibility. The prison sentence from 1992 to 1995 stole 3 prime years. The rushed comeback under Don King's control led to poor preparation and bad decisions. The Evander Holyfield fights, both of them were disasters. The first loss exposed his lack of conditioning. The second, the ear bite, destroyed his reputation. After the ear bite in June 1997, Mike's career spiraled into chaos. His boxing license was revoked. He was fined $3 million. He was banned from boxing for over a year. When he returned in January 1999, he wasn't the same fighter. He fought Francois Botha in Las Vegas and knocked him out in the 5th round, but it took everything he had. Later that year, he fought Orlin Norris, but the fight ended in a controversial no contest after Mike hit him after the bell while Norris was injured. Nothing felt meaningful anymore. Every fight felt like a sideshow, a spectacle designed to generate money, not respect. Then came the losses that really hurt. In January 2000, Mike fought Julius Francis in England and won easily. But later that year, he fought Lou Savarese and won in 38 seconds. But his post-fight rant shocked everyone. He talked about eating Lennox Lewis's children. It was bizarre, disturbing, and it made people wonder if Mike was losing his mind. In October 2000, Mike fought Andrew Golota. Golota quit after 2 rounds, claiming injury. Mike won, but it didn't feel like a win. It felt like chaos. Then in 2001, Mike fought Brian Nielsen in Denmark and won. But these weren't real opponents. They were tune-ups, sacrificial lambs. Mike was still dangerous enough to beat mediocre fighters. But against elite competition, that was the question. And by 2002, there was only one elite opponent left, Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis wasn't like the other fighters Mike had faced in his comeback years. Lennox was the real deal. 6'5", 245 pounds of muscle and technique. A British-born, Canadian-raised fighter who dominated the heavyweight division for years. He was the undisputed champion, holding the WBC, IBF, and IBO titles. He'd beaten everyone: Evander Holyfield, Vitaly Klitschko, David Tua, Ray Mercer, Hasim Rahman, twice. Lennox had the size Mike never had. The reach, the discipline. He was a technical boxer with knockout power. He didn't brawl. He controlled distance. He picked opponents apart with his jab. And when he landed his right hand, fights ended. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. He was just effective. And by 2002, at age 36, Lennox Lewis was still in his prime. Still sharp, still hungry. For Lennox, the Mike Tyson fight was the one he'd been chasing for years. Ever since the late 1990s, people had been talking about Lewis versus Tyson. It was the super fight that never happened until now. Lennox wanted to cement his legacy. He wanted to beat the most famous heavyweight in history. And he knew Mike was vulnerable, older, slower, mentally fragile. Lennox Lewis saw an opportunity, and he was determined not to waste it. The build-up to Lewis versus Tyson was pure chaos. The press conferences were wild. At one event in New York in January 2002, Mike and Lennox got into a brawl. Punches were thrown. Security had to separate them. Mike bit Lennox's leg during the melee. It was insane. The New York State Athletic Commission refused to license the fight in New York, so the fight moved to Las Vegas. But then Nevada wouldn't license it either because of Mike's behavioral issues. Finally, Memphis, Tennessee stepped in. The Pyramid Arena. June 8th, the fight was on. The hype was massive. This was Mike Tyson's last chance at glory. Everyone knew it. At 35 years old, with a record full of losses and controversies, this was his final shot at becoming heavyweight champion again. If he beat Lennox, he'd be on top of the world again. If he lost, his career was essentially over. There would be no more title shots, no more big paydays, just exhibitions and farewells. Mike trained harder than he had in years. He knew this was it, his last real chance. He brought in Ronnie Shields as his trainer, a respected coach who'd worked with Evander Holyfield. He worked on his conditioning, his footwork, his defense. He focused on getting his weight down to 234 pounds, lighter than he'd been in years. He sparred with young, hungry fighters. He watched tape of Lennox's fights, looking for weaknesses. For the first time in years, Mike seemed genuinely committed. But even with the effort, there were doubts. Could a 35-year-old Mike Tyson, with all his miles and all his damage, really beat the undisputed heavyweight champion who was 6'5" and in his athletic prime? Most experts said no. The odds favored Lennox heavily, but Mike's name still carried weight. And boxing fans wanted to believe. They wanted one more miracle, one more Iron Mike moment. The pay-per-view numbers reflected that hope. Over 1.95 million homes bought the fight. It was one of the biggest boxing events of 2002. June 8, 2002, Memphis, Tennessee. The Pyramid Arena was packed with over 15,000 fans. The atmosphere was electric. This was it, Mike Tyson's last title shot. Lennox Lewis entered first, calm and composed. 6'5", 249 pounds, the undisputed champion. Mike entered second, to his signature DMX walkout music, 35 years old, 234 pounds, the former champion trying to reclaim what he'd lost. The opening bell rang, and for the first few rounds, Mike looked competitive. He was aggressive. He threw combinations. He moved his head. He looked like he still had something left. In round one, Mike landed a few good shots. The crowd roared. Maybe, just maybe, there was still magic left. But Lennox stayed calm. He used his jab. He controlled the distance. He didn't panic. And slowly, round by round, Lennox started to take over. By round 3, Lennox's jab was dominating. Mike couldn't get inside. Every time he tried to close the distance, Lennox's long arms pushed him back. By round 4, Mike's punches were slowing down. His footwork was getting flat. He was breathing harder. Lennox, meanwhile, looked fresh. He was timing Mike's attacks, setting traps, waiting for the right moment. In round 5, Lennox landed a big right hand that snapped Mike's head back. Mike stumbled but didn't go down. The crowd gasped. Lennox smelled blood. He pressed forward, more jabs, more right hands. Mike was in survival mode. He made it to the end of the round, but the damage was done. By round 6, Mike looked exhausted. His punches had no snap. His defense was gone. He was just standing there taking punishment. Lennox was breaking him down. Piece by piece, round 7 was brutal. Lennox landed almost at will. Mike tried to fight back, but his punches were weak. He was too tired, too old, too damaged. Between rounds, Mike's corner knew it was over, but Mike insisted he could continue. He'd come too far to quit. This was his last shot. He had to see it through. Round 8 started, and Lennox came out aggressive. He knew Mike was hurt. He knew this was the moment to finish it. Lennox landed a big right hand to Mike's temple. Mike's legs wobbled. Another right hand. Mike stumbled backward into the ropes. Lennox followed up with a combination left hook, right hand, left hook. Mike went down. Not a dramatic knockout, just a slow collapse. His body gave out. He fell to the canvas, and referee Eddie Cotton immediately waved it off. Fight over. TKO. Round 8. Mike stayed down for a moment. Then he got up slowly. His face was swollen. His eyes were empty. He walked to his corner without looking at anyone. Lennox celebrated, but not excessively. He respected Mike. He knew what this loss meant. This wasn't just another win. This was the end of Mike Tyson's championship dream. At 35 years old, Mike Tyson had fought his last title fight, and he'd lost, decisively. After the fight, Mike was gracious. In the post-fight interview, he didn't make excuses. He didn't blame anyone. He simply said, "I gave it my best. Lennox was the better man tonight." It was a rare moment of humility from a man who'd spent years refusing to accept reality. But that night, there was no denying it. Lennox Lewis had been superior in every way. Bigger, stronger, smarter, fresher. The boxing world reacted with a mixture of respect and sadness. Respect for Mike's effort. He hadn't quit. He'd fought until the referee stopped it. But sadness because everyone knew this was the end. Mike Tyson would never fight for a world title again. His championship days were over. He was 35 years old with too much mileage and too much damage. There would be no comeback from this. For Lennox Lewis, the win cemented his legacy. He'd beaten the most famous heavyweight in history. He'd proven he was the best of his era. Lennox would go on to fight a few more times before retiring in 2004 as the undisputed champion. He left the sport on his terms, with his legacy intact. Mike, on the other hand, kept fighting, but it was never about titles anymore. It was about money, about survival, about delaying the inevitable. Mike Tyson is 58 years old now. Lennox Lewis is 59. Both are retired. Both are legends. And when they see each other, there's mutual respect. Mike has said publicly that Lennox was the better fighter that night, that he gave everything he had, but it wasn't enough. There's no bitterness, no resentment, just acceptance. Lennox, for his part, has always spoken respectfully of Mike. Mike Tyson was one of the greatest heavyweights ever. Lennox has said, "Fighting him was an honor. I'm just glad I was at my best that night." It's the kind of respect that only comes with time and distance. In 2002, they were rivals. Today, they're just two men who shared a ring once and gave the world a memorable fight. Mike's life after the Lewis fight was difficult. He fought 4 more times. He beat Clifford Etienne in 2003. He lost to Danny Williams in 2004. He lost to Kevin McBride in 2005 and retired immediately after. His boxing career ended not with glory, but with a whimper. But in the years since, Mike has rebuilt his life. He's found peace. He's become a cultural icon again, this time for his honesty, his vulnerability, and his willingness to confront his demons. June 8, 2002 in Memphis, Tennessee, was the end of an era. Mike Tyson, the youngest heavyweight champion in history at age 20, had just fought his last title fight at age 35. 15 years separated those two moments. 15 years of triumphs, disasters, controversies, and decline. And on that night in Memphis, the circle closed. The loss to Lennox Lewis is remembered not as an embarrassment, but as a dignified end to Mike's championship ambitions. He fought hard. He gave everything he had, but he was outclassed by a better fighter. There's no shame in that. Lennox Lewis was 6'5" in his prime and one of the best heavyweights of all time. Mike was 35, past his prime, and carrying a decade of damage. The outcome was inevitable. But Mike showed up, he fought, and when it was over, he accepted it. For boxing fans, especially those over 65 who watched Mike's entire career unfold, the Lewis fight represents closure. It was the final answer to the question, could Mike Tyson reclaim the heavyweight championship? The answer was no. And after that night, there were no more questions. Mike Tyson's time as a championship-level fighter was over. What remained was a legend, a cautionary tale, and a man who would spend the rest of his life figuring out who he was without the title. Here's the final question. If Mike had won that night, would it have changed anything? Would he have become champion again, or would the decline have continued regardless? We'll never know. But what we do know is this. Mike Tyson fought for the heavyweight championship one last time on June 8, 2002. He lost to a better man, and he never got another chance. That's the story. That's the legacy. And that's how it ended.